if you're foliar feeding and you're mending soil and you're trying to grow actually nutritious food, any material that's left over, if you can put it back in and let the soil life eat it. I just did a Haney test actually, and this was no compost for 3 years, and the ratios were good.
You're listening to How I Grow This, exploring stories of gardeners from across the globe as we learn from their biggest tips and tricks to some of the things not to do. I'm your host, Luke Hammond. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the How I Grow This podcast. I'm your host, Luke Hammond, and I'm joined today by the owner-founder of Honey Tree Farm, North Carolina, Honey Tree NC. If you have not liked or subscribed Honey Tree Farm on Instagram or any of the social medias, you need to, because Casey Ostwick is one of the most talented growers that I've seen anywhere. His farm is unbelievably awesome. So you're going to really enjoy this conversation as we dive deep into soil health, fertility, foliar sprays, applications like that. So stick around. You're going to want to learn a ton. Get out your notebook because Casey is a wealth of information. Casey, welcome to the podcast.
What's up, dude? Thanks for the invite.
Tell me a little bit about your story. I understand that you have been farming for how long now?
This is our 6th season. Yeah, it's our 6th season here. We had to build everything from nothing. 6 years farming, pretty like full time, pretty much farming pretty hard. But before that, I worked in landscaping and tree work, and I run the farm with my wife Tori, and she has a background in accounting and like data analytics, and she's super organized, and so that helps a lot. And I've been in I'm about to turn 36, and I've been working outside in the field, starting with landscaping since I was 16. So I've never worked inside. I've always been outside working with plants. And I studied horticulture at Owens, little college in Toledo, Ohio.
Okay.
And just a lot of learning on your own. I know from being in this field that if you rely on people to teach you things, or like to go to like one class a year or something, or take some kind of class at a college, it's nowhere near enough to make it all work. So
yeah, I think the best teacher is definitely hard knocks and letting things die unintentionally in the garden.
Yeah, or just asking someone who's already been through this state, as far as like a farm business goes, or someone who's been gardening for a long time, like even for fruit trees or trees in general, someone who's been around trees a lot. I had a lot of really good mentors when I was younger, so I'm super thankful for that.
So you went from tree service. Was that more like landscaping tree service, pruning deadfall, cleaning, pruning, or was it all like fruit tree and orchards and management there?
We did mostly residential.
Okay.
I did what they called plant health care, which is really just super high nitrogen fertilizers and pesticides, really to make up for the problem from the extra nitrogen. And so I did plant health care, which was like you would go to a property, like a super nice property, walk around, check the oak trees, check the shrubbery, find the pests and the disease, bring the homeowner out, walk them around, have a treatment plan that you like go back to your truck and you write it all out. Take soil samples if you need to. We had a research lab. This was through Bartlett Tree Experts. And yeah, we would do that. And then I also climbed. So we did a lot of pruning, removals. And then there was like cabling, pruning, all like keeping like old historical trees healthy. And then we did a little bit of orchard stuff, which was, I didn't really know much about it. And then me and this other guy got kind of the job to manage this orchard and take care of it. And I got to see how much was applied to the trees. We're out there applying all this stuff and fertilizing, and then you run across other ways of doing it, and you just, if you're curious, you think, why was it done that way and not this other way? And yeah, I could talk about it forever, but the basics of it it took kind of more of like a conventional ag approach with like synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and fungicides versus the approach that we take, which is like soil health, mineral nutrition.
Uh-huh.
Um, minimal tillage.
So let's begin to walk down that path. You were in this tree service, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to leave this tree service and start my own farm. What drew you there, and how did you get to that point?
Well, I learned how to keep bees when I was 19, and if you're into bees at all, you realize how sensitive they are to their environment. And so I kind of had the. I feel like bees is where you should end up after you do all this stuff. But I started there with a
Hmm.
really two really good bee mentors, and they're so delicate and like finicky, and they are what they are. But I had bees, and then Tori and I were growing our own food. Um, she was working corporate, and I was working with trees. So I'll like spray fungicides and pesticides all day, and come home and grow my own food organically. And Tori was like, "Let's start a farm." I'm like, "Man, I know how much work that is. I don't know." And then we just expanded our garden. We had a little CSA, and then went from trees to living in a camper at this like wedding event venue place
Hmm.
for almost a year, and started farming there. And then we found our place and moved up here. But yeah, it's just one of those things. There's like family health issues. You wonder about cancer and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
when you make the linkage to pesticides or food that doesn't really have much nutrition in it.
Right. A lot of people I've interviewed in this podcast have actually come to their growing in their garden from health challenges or health issues from the get go. Yours wasn't really there. It was almost like the opposite of like just seeing, hey, what I'm spraying everywhere is just not actually helpful for the world and the environment. And I think I'm influencing these bees. And I was a beekeeper for so long, and now I don't really like what I'm doing there. I know a book that was largely influential for you as well as me was J.M. Fortier's The Market Farmer, or The Market Gardener. What's it called? The Market Gardener?
The market gardener, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, well, when we started growing our food, we had like my dad had cancer and my grandpa had cancer. Like every male in my family's had cancer. So,
Mm,
we started growing our own food, thinking this was like 15. Anyways, a lot of people came around to that, but we were just doing it, I guess, before it was more like popular or whatever. But yeah, the market gardener book. So I have a friend, his name's Elliot Olson. Um, he did a little farming,
hmm.
and he was doing landscaping, and I think he studied marketing in college and didn't like it. So he was trying to get into landscaping. Um, he came over, he's like, "Dude, you got to read this book. It's this couple that makes like," and he told me it was like 130 grand an acre in Canada. And I was like, "Nah, that's BS. It's a book. They're just selling stuff." And I kind of wrote it off for a couple years. And then when Tori got into gardening, I remember the book and just bought it for her. And then um, I read it too and was like, "Oh, wow, that's actually really possible," you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been good that book was good to get into it and how to think about it, because we're not even grow up on a farm or inherit a farm or anything. It's like a good way to think about being efficient, how smaller can be better, how you could um, better for efficiency and better for like crop quality.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into it. The hardest part for us was the soil fertility, because
Right.
we're in the southeast, we're in North Carolina, and our particular land was tilled a lot, and then the all land around here was cotton like a long time ago. So that's been the hardest. That's been the biggest challenge. Getting work done is not really that hard. Working efficient's not that hard.
So let's
It's
begin
really the
to
fertility.
let's begin to talk into some of that. So you're in North Carolina. What are some of your like distinctives of your growing zone, your space? When are your frosts setting in? Um,
Yeah. Let's see. Last frost could be usually April 1st. Could be May 1st. First frost usually November 1st. Um, could be mid October. Last year it was mid
mhm,
October.
mhm,
Um, the year before that it wasn't until like November 10th. So
mhm,
it. There's a joke here that if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes.
mm,
And I grew up in Ohio. That's how it is there too. kind of, but we're kind of close to the mountains here too, so it can really change pretty quick. And let's see, we get about 50 inches of rain a year. In 2020, we got 80 inches of rain. It's very humid. It's one of the biggest challenges with disease. Last year, our average humidity, I have a Tempest weather station. The average humidity was like 82% for the year.
Wow.
That's crazy, dude. That's like rainforest. And let's see what else. We had a week this year in January that was below freezing the whole week. And then we had a week in the summer that was like 97 and above with high humidity, heat index 107, 108 for it was probably 6 days straight.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, we were on track for the hottest, most humid summer here in 80 years. And then there's a shift in the weather pattern, and we had a cool August with a ton of rain.
Yeah.
So we went like it was just a roller coaster. So a
Right.
lot of adjustments. So we have 22 tunnels. We have 20 cat tunnels and 2 high tunnels. One of the high tunnels is our nursery space because we start everything from seed. But that having things protected is pretty huge because we grow and sell every year round. So
You mean every week of the year, all the way
yeah,
through the year? Yeah.
yeah, we sell every week. We don't go to the markets after the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and
Okay.
then sometimes we don't go after Christmas, depending on how it lines up with New Year's Eve. So no one goes
So
to the market after Thanksgiving.
yeah, you just take the week off because you have food. You just take it off because nobody's going to be buying that food.
Yeah, everyone's got leftovers, and they're
Right.
not going to the market to buy stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha. So we have this ground that's around your house, poor soil fertility, and it was essentially just like a lawn. What did you do to transition into a working farm? What was your kind of process and train of thought to move from sod to farm and soil fertility?
Well, using silage tarps to kill the grass,
Okay.
and then marking out plots and building beds in them
Uh-huh.
and testing the soil. So I was actually looking at some of my old soil tests from 2019 when we started,
Uh-huh.
and the phosphorus in parts per million was 6.
6.
Like, yeah, to tell you like how poor it is. And then
Wow.
the micronutrients like didn't even show up, and the potassium was super low too. So there's kind of a buffer period when you start a garden somewhere where you till up land. You get like a year of growth.
Uh-huh.
I thought that I had like amended enough. I didn't want to go too heavy,
Uh-huh.
but I just didn't. And then we don't, we've cover cropped some areas, but usually we don't. We just grown it all year, and there's some other management strategies in that too. But we've been able to bring up all the nutrient levels up to, like phosphorus is still pretty low. We got our calcium up, like we got everything up. The CEC we quadrupled. The organic matter we quadrupled.
So
The minerals are up.
what was your organic matter, and then what is it now?
It was like 0.5%, and now it's to check. Most of it's about it was like 0.5 to 1. Most of it's like 4 to 6ish now.
Okay.
Some's higher, but the CEC was 3 or 4. I test every plot individually, and now I test every tunnel. So to think of it in a broad term is a little challenging, but
Right.
that's about an average of it.
So, for those who aren't familiar, we're talking into a lot of the macronutrients, which would be your phosphorus and potassium that he mentioned. We'll talk about micronutrients a little bit later. Organic matter is essentially a measure of carbon within your soil structure, and then CEC stands for cation exchange capacity. And so that's to put it simply, it's kind of like the fuel tank of your cations. How much fuel can you have? If you have a high CEC, you have a lot of fuel. If you have a very low CEC, which would be like your sandy soils, you don't have a lot of fuel before you run on empty. I hope that's a quick description that helps you, but let's jump back into it here.
Yeah. So why that matters is we're growing vegetables. So like you want to grow vegetables because you want to eat them for nutrients. And so to just throw some compost down. I'd be like, I have nutrient dense vegetables. Like, do you? You know,
Mm.
if you have 6 feet of topsoil, you probably do. But if you don't, do you? I don't know. So we do a lot of testing to see, and we're actually gonna. I found a lab. I'll have to text you about this when you might be interested in doing it too. It's $85 to send like some carrots out to get
A
like a
nutrient
nutrient, like
analysis.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and then so I'm gonna do that and then get some from the grocery store and compare them and see what's different, and then kind of adjust from there. But yeah, so those things actually matter. Yeah, and then the other thing is we've like increased the soil health and all these things while continuously growing vegetables, while making a living from it, while paying employees, like while paying bills. So we didn't just like cover crop everything for 8 years and come back and grow on it and be like, yo, we got some good soil. We were growing and making a living off of it, paying off tunnels to amendments, like, and reinvesting in infrastructure on the farm at the same time.
Right, which is where you lean on Tori and her accounting background and her
Hmm.
organization and all of
Yeah.
that. And then you just specialize in, how do you work that in your relationship? Do you go to her and say like, "Hun, I really want to buy this sprayer or this fertility and amendment," and she says,
N-
maybe next
Nah,
year.
I usually I have an idea always of what the numbers are. And
Mhm.
like when we come back from market, she'll do everything and like put it in the spreadsheet, and I'll just like, can I see the big number? And I'm like, okay, that's what I figured. And then pretty much I'm just like, yeah, I'm about to drop $1,000 on liquid minerals, and she's like, all right. But the other side of it is like, if I don't do what I do, then we don't have anything to sell
Mhm.
to count any money. So
Right.
like, and she's so much better at like delegating and stuff like that, that we have a plan for the day, and then I'm just like, "That's all you can you." I'm better off walking around looking at stuff, like making sure everything irrigation is good, the little details are all
Mhm.
good everywhere, instead of walking around being like, "Oh, we need to have this person do this next and this person do this next." So we've walked the farm like hundreds of times, walking around and trying to help each other see like, this is what I see, this is what you see, what makes sense,
I think
what's realistic.
that's a powerful observation, obviously knowing how you guys work together, but um the blend of going, this is what I see, this is what you see, because I've seen this over and over again and experienced it over and over again where I'll turn a blind eye to specific things and be focusing on what I view as most important when what my
Yeah,
wife sees is like very important too,
yeah.
if not more
Well,
important, probably more
yeah.
important.
The thing is like, we can look at the same thing and see completely different things. Like we're
Yeah.
looking at the same thing, but what we see is completely different. Like like we harvested kale today, and it's
Hmm.
like, okay, it needs to be harvested a little different, so that uh like the vegetative, keeping it in a vegetative state and making sure that all the plants are like harvested the same and growing together, so that all the other applications and everything is like equal. And we come in, we can expect this many bunches per bed. Like that's what we're working towards now. So all those little details make a big difference. And
Right.
you can see a harvested bed of kale, but like what I would see is like, there's still leaves on the bottom of the stem. We need to take those off because they're just harboring disease and aphids, and um, they turn yellow. It's like, and then sometimes there's too many, and there's like lack of airflow and blah blah blah, all that stuff. There's just so many variables that go into it.
Right. And so what you're shooting for is a uniformity of growth so that when you come through and you do a calculation on a foliar spray, it's going to be an even application. That plant, more or less, is going to be able to receive that application in very similar fashion to the other plants down the line, right? To keep even growth
Yeah,
and
and
health.
yeah, and for even for just for the longevity of the plant, like if we have consistent clean pruning, consistent uh nutrition,
Hmm.
consistent harvest, there's less stress all around.
Right.
And we did it, like we kind of focused on it on a one tunnel this spring, and we had kale 3.5 feet tall by the time we took it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the regular foliage part, and then the stem was like, it was like up to my waist.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all clean. There was no disease. There's very little insect pressure. And if there was, and we needed like mycotrol, fungus, grows on aphids, um, to get in and like under and hit all the bottom of the leaves, because that's where they hang out, to do that easily and effectively, I don't know. I'm bringing up a bunch of details on that, but yeah, that's, when we're making decisions and stuff like that, that's how we think about
That's
it. And
how you lean in.
um, yeah, and it goes, like harvesting spinach, keeping it all, it all matters. Everything we do
Right.
matters, which is cool.
Right. One of the things that a lot of growers, at different levels are going to struggle with and have challenges with, obviously it depends on their context. Obviously it depends on where they're growing. You're in that market garden side of things. So we're kind of talking to market gardeners, but some of these principles will apply, especially when we start talking about fertility. But depending on your markets, because you harvest and take everything from the field, to your market to sell, you have an advantage over some of the market farmers that may be, structured a little differently, to where they're stocking a store and what sells drives how they grow, rather than what they grow drives what they sell. A market gardener will take all of their stuff to the farmer's market and try to sell it all there and leave with nothing. That's the goal. Um, on-farm sales structures, or you pick lots, their goal is to it may be a little different. Maybe their goal is just to keep everything clean, so that the U pickers come through and they pick it, then they have to come through and clean it. Profitability changes back and forth. What are some of the distinct advantages that you have, and then the distinct disadvantages you have as a grower, going for market like you do? Do you ever come back with excessive amounts of kale, or did you early on in your markets? Maybe not kale,
Well,
but
yeah, you're talking about you pick stuff. All the context matters. So, well, I was told when we started farming not to do a CSA, which I'm thankful that I listened to that. The market's really forgiving, and we well, with COVID, we grew into our demand, and like all of a sudden we had a lot of demand, so we just expanded as fast as we could,
Mhm.
and then we tried to grow the best stuff that we could, and a lot of people stuck around. So we've been able to kind of grow with our demand pretty. What's the word I'm looking for? Like parallel, I
Evenly,
guess.
yeah, pretty
Yeah,
evenly, yeah.
and so we don't really waste a lot. And then we have some chefs, and then there's a kid's place up the street that will sell like super cheap too,
Hmm.
um, just to move it. We do market leftover surprise bags, so there's like something weird, maybe kohlrabi fennel, something unique that people aren't used to. Like, it's a good way for someone to try it, and
Right.
it's marked down. Um, but yeah, and then we donate to at both markets. We donate in the Charlotte market now. There's a lady that started this thing that you like donate, but then you can send her a wholesale list, and they got like funding or something to buy some. So
Oh,
it's been pretty cool. But yeah, usually we kind of know how many bags of salad we're gonna sell. We try and hit holidays right.
mm.
Uh, you can trade at the market, which is cool. And yeah,
And when you have such great stuff, the people that are selling, if you're in the vegetable game and you want beef or, chicken, and you've got the best vegetables, you have a little more trading power because they want your stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
There's
nice.
a particular farm I always get a sirloin steak from
Nice.
every week, dude. And then she always wants like first dibs on arugula and spinach and celery. So I'm like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah. There we go. We trade.
Yeah.
Um, those kind of market relationships are super fun when you get in there. Let's dive really deep into how plants grow. That's one of the things that I think you talk about kind of the most. I want you to sum up in a few minutes how plants grow, and then we're going to dive into nutrition of those plants?
All right. Well, the seed comes out, the root comes out first, or when the seed germinates, and then uh, that's when a lot of your like bacteria and fungal relationships are made, and then photosynthesizes. It goes through stages. You have like vegetative, flowering, and eventually it reaches a point where it starts to die out. Um, the nutrients used in that process is everybody knows like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But like what I've learned a lot recently is just the importance of the minerals in that process and the importance they play in disease resistance and pest resistance. Like we have an issue with disease here,
Uh-huh.
and um, copper's low like across the board. So that's and then I've had it in foliars, but like to understand the parts per million to raise it to a certain point to make it enough so that your plants can use nutrition to fight off disease is like where that's the challenge. That's the hard part now.
That
So yeah, so like the way they grow, I mean they can't move, so they're like little bioreactor factories
Mhm.
putting sugars into the soil to get things that they need. And then if you have a sucky native soil and they're not there, they're just not there.
So through these interactions between, um, you know, the word that's used is root exudates. I don't know if you directly said that.
Yeah,
Um,
sugars out of the root.
you described it as sugars or, complex proteins or amino acids that the root is putting into that soil. What breaks down the nutrients within a soil profile in order for those nutrients to then move into the plant? And what draws those nutrients up and into the plant?
Bacteria, like the rhizophagy cycle. It's a big one. You think of a fertilizer as called like organic ions, like simple, like NO3 or NH4. Usually, what fertilizers are just simple ions, and they just go in through the water.
Uh-huh.
But the release of the water through the leaves is what gives the plant the power to pull up water through the roots. And so um, that interaction of roots and bacteria or roots and fertilizer, like hydroponics is a lot of liquid ferts that just go into the roots in the water. I mean, that's what it is.
Right, right.
Letting them express themselves as like as good as their genes can with the nutrition that you give them.
So you talked a lot about minerals. Are you specifically talking about micronutrients or are you
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah. So
other
like,
minerals?
yeah, zinc, manganese, boron, um, copper, molybdenum's been a big one for us. I saw an instant change in that.
Mm-hmm.
Leaf thickness, pest pressure way down. Yeah, man, it's like it's just how it is. Like our bodies are the same way. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just wasted so much time growing, following those stupid put compost down, all that stupid advice when I should have been like focusing more on agronomy.
Uh-huh.
Like I
So
had
talk
someone ask me I had someone ask me recently, like, what should I do for farming? I'm like, learn learn agronomy, learn your soils and work fast.
mm-hmm.
Like just let it play out. But
So I think it's interesting there because you just described the probably number one recommended thing out there is add compost. Add compost. You hear almost everybody say that. Um, and what
yeah,
I'm
compost isn't soil though. Like it's organic matter. You need it. I mean, I put down 20 to 24 dump truck loads worth here.
uh-huh.
And it wasn't until I really addressed the actual soil chemistry correctly that anything changed. So the other side of it too is when you grow healthier plants, you release more sugars and all the other stuff into the soil. You have a bigger root
Right.
system. And then when you're not tilling and you're not tearing the roots out when you're flipping beds or if you have a little garden, just cut the roots at the base and leave that root structure in there. There's a lot of like unlocked nutrients and bacteria that for the next 2 weeks you can take advantage of that. I think it's
Mm,
like a 2 week window where you can, we pretty much usually will harvest a bed of salad and come around and clean it up and then plant something else like the next day or the day after usually. But yeah, I would say like the inoculants, the bacterial inoculants and the fungal inoculants, with leaving the root systems in, flail mowing crops, which is where you mow stuff and chop it up into pretty much nothing. Um, that did increase our organic matter more than compost.
Mhm.
And our compost sources weren't really that good. So if you have a good topsoil base and you put compost on it, it's probably good. If you have, in our case, like a junk base and you put compost on it, you have compost on a junk base.
Mm.
Like it, you know. So then at least this is usually true for the southeast. You'll be struggling with pest disease, poor growth, um, transplant shock. Like we don't deal with any of that anymore.
Right. So let's
And
talk about the micronutrients and the form in which you apply this nutrient to your soil or to your plant. What forms are you using to deliver micronutrients?
well, you can, if you want to make it complicated, you can get the mineral from whatever source, and then you can chelate it on your own, which I did for a while. And I was using like molasses, humic acid, fulvic acid. Um, but usually I just use AEA products now. So advancing eco ag
Hmm.
for foliars. And it's like I could tell when I did a foliar that I made, because the pH really matters. Like to do it really well. One, it took a lot of my time to like measure the pH and like, oh man, I better put a little citric acid in so I get the pH right. And then you put it on, like you think it does something, but it doesn't. And then yeah, anyways, so their products are very affordable, and the minerals are in the right form already.
Right.
Whether it's like Fe2 plus plus or whatever, I don't know those off the top of my head, but they're already chelated. They mix well together. They mix with other things well. So yeah,
So, I mean, I'm a big fan of advancing eco ag and the work of John Kemp and all the stuff that he's doing, and I use their products as well. Let's describe kind of a a crop from beginning cycle all the way through, and how many applications you're going to be delivering to that crop. Let's just say spinach. Um, you've got a pretty, at this point, healthy soil. So um, it's biologically active. You've got an organic matter of 4 to 6%. Um, this is going to be an equivalent raised bed mix of people that are following the third method of native soil, third sand and third compost and blending it all together. A lot of raised beds are going to fall in this category. Depending on the compost, it might have really high phosphorus. But other than that, what is your fertility program for foliar sprays?
for foliars, so that the foliars is in addition to the dry amendments that we put down. So I
Uh-huh.
tested everything in August and got the results back. And so I have, for every tunnel I mix, what is perceived to be the right
Uh-huh.
amount
Uh-huh.
of uh, NPK, and then I have a couple um, micro minerals. So, and then a crop like spinach, the type of nitrogen makes a big difference. At least this is as I understand it and have experienced it. If you so I use feather meal, and also for a crop like spinach, organic, which is
Uh-huh.
sodium nitrate, which is an omri, questionably omri. It's like fertilizer salt. Uh, but it's a nitrate form of nitrogen. So like spinach prefers a nitrate form of nitrogen. And certain crops do, certain crops don't. Um, but with that, um, there's also a soil primer.
Uh-huh.
So this is another AEA product. It's Rejuvenate, Sea Shield, and Spectrum. And then I also look at what parts per million are in the soil test and what's low. Like if zinc should be at 10 parts per million, but it's only at 4, and I'll try and adjust and start building that back up, zinc
So
levels back up. And then, yeah, so I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to get the thought out. And then the foliars are after that. Weekly is going to be macro pack, micro pack, and C-stem. And then we always have a problem with boron because we just have. So usually add a little bit extra boron in there, and calcium, because we've been little low in calcium.
Okay, so through that foliar, I'm going to work my way back through my questions. Okay, um, through that foliar program, you're adding boron. Is that from that's an AEA product that you're
Hmm.
adding the
Yeah,
individual
it's called
boron?
rebound. Yeah, it's
Okay,
called
so you're
rebound
in the
boron.
rebound line of the individual nutrient, and you're adding a little bit of that to macropack and micropack, which is a blended product from AEA.
Hmm.
And how much of that are you adding, and how much is that covering?
It's it's probably I usually stay on the lighter side. Um, per tunnel is probably about 2 ounces of macro pack, so that'd be 1,000 square feet.
Right.
I'm trying to not like blast it with stuff. I don't really feel like that's going to
Helpful.
be that
Yeah.
effective because there's only a certain window of time where the plant can actually take in nutrients. And, if there's too much, there's too much.
Uh-huh.
Like it can only do so much. So I try
Uh-huh.
and do it more like less amounts more frequently.
Uh-huh.
So if there's a morning where I wake up early and it's like 80% humidity and no wind, like, well, it's a good foliar morning.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But generally it's every week. Um, Usually every Thursday night or Friday morning because we're done with the week's harvest and then we can let it sit. And I usually run overhead irrigation, so that'll help keep the leaves wet.
Uh-huh.
And but yeah, that's kind of the general thing. And across the board, we have like zinc and manganese low as well, and copper. So I'll add that in too. And
Uh-huh.
I'm running overhead irrigation on 4 tunnels of brassicas right now, and there's like no black rod.
Uh-huh.
And 2 years ago, if I would have ran overhead one day, I would have had black rod across the whole thing. Whole whole tunnel would be junk. I've lived through it.
Uh-huh. So let's talk about that a little bit. When you have poor soil fertility, you have higher disease pressure, which then, if you were to
uh,
run overhead irrigation, it causes issues.
a
Now,
wet leaf surface.
a wet leaf surface. So as you've transitioned to having high nutrient availability within foliar sprays and amending your soil, you've shifted over to overhead irrigation and you don't have the disease pressure that you once did. So, which was it first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the soil fertility that got you there, or
Uh,
was it transitioning both at the same time? And why?
it was a lack of soil fertility.
Okay. And so, sorry, you've got my mind spinning and racing, and I love it. So, if somebody in their garden is trying to make that transition, um, and you're not necessarily making a recommendation because you don't want them to not be successful, but at the same time, this is what's caused a lot of success for you. You've shifted all to overhead.
Yeah, most of it's we don't do. I will not do overhead on crops that are close together like carrots.
Uh-huh.
Once those are established, I'll switch it to drip.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, and the other side of that too is the soil inoculants.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know, people who say it's BS. That's cool. Doesn't bother me. That's fine. I'm still gonna do it because I've seen it work.
Right.
The other part of it is the way that you were talking about how plants grow. The way the nutrient is delivered into the plant is makes a difference.
Uh-huh.
And have you gotten into the rhizophagy cycle at all?
A little bit. Definitely not in this
Dude,
podcast.
yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy that it exists. It's like bacteria being taken in like nutrients and moving into a certain part of the plant and like dropping it off and then
Uh-huh.
going back out
Uh-huh.
and then getting more and going back in. Not like a nutrient, like a full on bacteria, fungus will like grow into the roots and like they'll grow together.
Uh-huh.
And then in the fungus, they transport bacteria through the fungus into the root, living bacteria.
Uh-huh.
Dude, it's so alive, it's just crazy. And then, yeah, but I don't want to get too far into that. But
One of the things that
it,
I've seen studies of, which is fascinating, is specific nutrient reducing bacterias. So within that same cycle, there are if you have an excess of a specific nutrient, let's just say manganese, there are manganese reducing bacteria which are influenced by other bacteria which are then created within that soil profile, which are then expanded, and they help bring balance and a nature balance to that profile. So that's some of what you see when you look at a garden where a plant is just struggling, and then all of a sudden there's a crazy comeback or a bounce back
Yeah.
where the environment has transitioned, whether that be through water, through temperatures, through soil temperatures. That's some of what's going at the microscopic level. Um, I want to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about disease pressure, and we've talked a lot about balancing some of these nutrients. What do you do when you've got disease coming in strong? And obviously, you're saying, hey, we want to be preventative, but how do you address specific diseases within your crops, or what are you struggling with now?
Let's see. I'll bring up the most recent thing that would probably make sense. I don't use any of the like Serenade Howler, uh, even Oxidate, which is like a sanitizer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use any of that stuff anymore to try and fight disease. I I think because the nutrition was so off that they were still useless. I feel like if you're gonna make your nutrition better, then just like focus on that and forget those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't use any of those, but our cucumbers were doing great, and then we had it started in one end of the tunnel that flooded. We'll get like 2, 3 inch rain events after like a few days in a row here. They get an
Mm-hmm.
afternoon storm.
Mm-hmm.
So the cucumbers were great. There was like no disease. We were keeping the pests off, and I was actually getting ready to send AEA use a sap test to like see what's in your leaf in the leaf
Mm-hmm.
sap. I did leaf tissue, which really just shows kind of more like what's in the leaf, but doesn't show like the actual sap. But anyways, the sodium levels were high. I think from the dry amendments, the beds kind of like they didn't flood, but they were super saturated, and I think the plants just took in all that sodium. And what I didn't know, which I did learn after that, is that the sodium will be taken up in place of potassium. So then when your potassium's used for like overall plant health, now it's not in your leaf, but the sodium is, and now you have like a weaker like leaf structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then the disease started. And then it kind of like started, and then cucumber beetles showed up after like all these heavy rains and the humidity hit in the summer. Like it gets so humid here. I don't even think the plants grow because even if they release water to try and take water up, there's like nowhere for the water to go
Mm-hmm.
because the humidity is 100. It'll storm at 3 or 4 or 7 or 8, whatever. Like sometime on the evening, and then it'll be 100% humidity, super heavy, like so humid all night, and then it'll be super humid till about noon, and then it will dry out, and then it will storm again.
Right. Right.
So the humidity like doesn't go away. It's really challenging. But yeah, talking about disease, that humidity and like that whole process is why it's like not particularly because of the sodium instead of the potassium, but the humidity process and then keeping all of it balanced. So next year, I'm hoping to do more testing so I can stay ahead of it, and then hopefully the AEA guys have like uh, they've worked with these crops before and they know that in certain conditions, maybe I don't know, maybe you need some more of this or a few other things, or they have bacteria like beneficial bacteria that you put on the leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I put those in with the foliars too, but and there's some other ones too that they have I haven't tried yet, but I don't know if they recommend it or not. But that whole approach to managing stuff is yeah, the disease thing is wild, dude. I mean, we've been broad forking every bed this year too, for better soil health to get more air down there. Yeah, I don't
So
know if that answered your question or not, but
let's talk through the process of bed flipping. So a lot of people are familiar with no-till. Some people may not be, and a lot of people, if you're not familiar with the no-till techniques, walk us through what it means to flip a bed for
I
you.
uh, we do some different ways. So if it scatters around, then sorry, but I don't really talk about our farm very often.
Hmm.
So I'm not very good at explaining a lot of these things. There's like so much depth to it, and we've been through all the processes. So like trying to give the best information. Basically, so let's see if it's a bed and weed mat. So if it's a salad bed or like a broccoli bed, we'll cut the plant at the base,
Hmm.
and then either if there's not like after it's fruited and stuff, um, depending on plant health because it's already fruited and some of them sit around for a while. If the plants are still nice, we'll save them like in the walkway and we'll pull the weed mat up and then we'll rake them back in the bed and I'll flail mow them down like
Hmm.
3 or 4 times, chop the whole plant up. So we're adding back the whole plant. If it's arugula or a spice, we do a spicy green mix. If it's that, where it's like a direct seeded bed, so you have like a thick layer of greens on the whole bed, I'll flomo that, and then maybe like beets, which we grow in weed mat or out of weed mat. That's like where you pull a root crop out. You know, you have to take pretty much the whole thing out or take the whole carrot out.
Hmm.
Um, that's the other bed, and those two are pretty much pull the crops out, break the material away, do a little shaping if you need to.
Hmm.
So if you have to like raise up a bed or whatever,
Hmm.
do that, pull all your weeds out with whatever tool you got. And then usually on a bed that's been open before. So if we didn't have weed mat, we would put down a crop that uses weed mat next. And then if we have a bed that did have weed mat, we'll we'll try not even till it and we'll go ahead and direct seed right on top of it and
Gotcha.
try and get all the growth of the arugula to come up before the weeds. Usually it
Hmm.
works pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the one of the biggest things is using the flail mower, just mowing it down is huge.
Hmm.
Because if you're foliar feeding and you're mending soil and you're trying to grow actually nutritious food, any material that's left over, if you can put it back in
Hmm.
and let the soil life eat it. I just did a Haney test actually. Uh, they have like carbon to nitrogen ratio, and this was no compost for 3 years, and the ratios were good. Like as if we had cover crops, it'd be on the lower side of cover cropping, but it was still. I mean, for growing vegetables all year that way, it
So,
was
what
still
about
pretty
for
good.
long season crops like cucumbers, tomatoes,
Yeah.
and vines that may have disease? Are you flail mowing that material into the bed, or are you pulling those
Nah.
out?
If you try to flow mow a long tomato plant, it's gonna get caught up. Those usually we'll take those out. We'll throw them at the end of the tunnel, and then use the grapple with the ditch witch and just grab it, take it back to the compost pile. It's real
Hmm.
quick,
Hmm.
and then yeah, just let it cook in there.
Yep. Very cool. Um, so you described some crops like arugula and lettuce and a lot of these things where you said you're flail mowing it, but haven't you harvested the majority of that off? What are you actually flail mowing at that point in the journey?
So if you have like this is your plant, and you harvest it right here,
Hmm.
and you have the little stubble down there,
Hmm.
like it could regrow. Like we're usually on baby greens, we'll harvest them, and I'll do a full year, and we'll get a second growth that's very comparable to the first growth. Um,
Hmm.
still, um, so I'll run the flow mower like right here, like
Like
right in the soil.
on the soil.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, and I've been doing that for 4 years, and like the blades are still good. Um, they actually stay sharp somehow.
Right.
I sharpen them every January, and I'm like, how are these still sharp? I've been cutting into the soil about that far, like the whole year. But and especially if you've harvested it like 2 or 3 times, and it's some of it's starting to bolt. Once it hits that stage, if you cut it down on the ground, it's not going to grow back because all the energy's up in the flower.
Gotcha.
And yeah, and then maybe if it's bad, we'll bring the tiller out and till like those roots and
Hmm.
just chop them.
And
Very rarely do we have like a resurgence of the old crop.
and then any of your woody stemmed herbs like basil or uh peppers, crops like that, you're cutting with a pruner right at if it's probably in weed mat, you're cutting right at
Yeah.
the surface.
Yeah,
Um,
we bought electric pruners.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So
And
the you get I mean you get a broccoli stem that's like that big. Those electric pruners just cut right through it.
that's awesome.
It's nice.
And then you leave the root structure in. You're pulling your weed mat now up and over the top because you've pruned that material out.
Yeah. And then
Or
pull it out of the tunnel so it's out of the way.
pull it out of the tunnel so it's out of the way, and then all the woody stem stuff, is that going to the compost, or are you chopping that up?
Nah, I'll mow it.
Okay, so you kind of cut it all back, roll it off, pull the paper back, and then mow the whole tunnel down just to leave all that material into the tunnel and let it
Yeah.
decompose. After that point, do you cover it or do you plant right back into that
We usually
space?
plant right into it.
Okay.
It's mowed down enough. And there's so much moisture in that too.
Mhm.
I think it was no, it was New Year's Eve. We had 4 beds of broccoli that were done, and we cut them and we mowed them all, and uh, turned around and put amendments on and lightly tilled them in just to mix with some soil, and we
Mhm.
seeded baby greens into it. I mean, this is December 31st, and we had a full like amazing tunnel in March, and it was really cold.
That's
So like,
awesome.
yeah, I mean. And then spraying the inoculants on there too to start breaking it down. They still work when it's winter. Well, in our climate, it's not like the soil doesn't really freeze hard. It did freeze a little bit, but only maybe for a couple hours.
Right. Well, the other thing you have to take into consideration for those listening is all of Casey's farm is under tunnels. So he does have a plastic barrier, 16-foot wide tunnel. Um, and so it's not open field. It still gets cold in there, but it does warm up quite a bit during the day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit because you have all these tunnels. If for those who do have tunnels or maybe listening, one of the biggest challenges in decision making is opening and closing tunnels. How do you manage and do that? Do you open and close every single day in the winter when you have all these crops? Are you uh, just opening the end walls? How do you decide what you're doing
Uh,
regarding?
Probably 36 to 37 degrees and below. We'll close the sides, but leave the ends open. If it's 32 or below, we'll close everything. If it's 25 or below, we'll row cover under there too. So you have the tunnel closed
Mhm.
completely, all the plastic closed, like the ends and the sides, and then we'll put row cover over the plants
Mhm.
for second layer protection. For that's if it's 25 and below, really.
And is there any duration of length of time that you're looking for that dip in the temperatures? Like if you are going to have a pretty far dip just for a short amount of time, are you going to do the same program? Or is it, yeah, it's going to be at least
Um,
over an hour or 2 hours of
well,
that temperature?
it's kind of crop dependent. If it's gonna be 26 for 3 hours for broccoli, no. For celery, definitely.
Gotcha.
Salad probably doesn't need it, but I don't want to deal with any damage on it in the winter, so I'll
Hmm.
probably cover that too. Carrots are fine.
Okay, what would your recommendation be for a growing context like mine, where it's probably going to be down in the teens
We
every
talked
night?
about this.
Yeah, every night.
I've been thinking about it too.
Through winter, for I'm it's not going to be a long time, but it's very likely that I'll have 16 degree to 26 degrees most nights for about an hour to an hour and a half in that early morning window, being at high desert context. And then by 11 o'clock, we're going to be back up into the 50, 60. By the afternoon, it's going to be 70 degrees. And then it's going to repeat that cycle every single day. Um, what would your recommendation be? Just not grow, not farm?
No, so there's been days that I mean, 16 is cold. Does the water like obviously the water freezes? What do the native plants do?
Well,
Is there any still with green leaves on them?
no, I mean, the native plants are primarily going to be all in winter mode, all the
Okay.
mesquites are there's no foliage on them
Yeah, like
through the
we'll still
winter.
have clover and stuff even when it gets down to like 12.
Yeah, clover will be there a little bit, but overwintered rye, winter wheat, things like that will still be green, obviously. Through that, but it's just because the duration is not long, so it's never going to be. Well, I'm not going to say that, but knock on wood, it doesn't last long. So like we can have shallow pipes, but that water won't freeze underground at a shallow depth because it
Yeah.
thaws back up. Um, if you have standing water in like a water dish, like for like a dog, it's going to freeze.
Yeah.
Um,
So I had a couple 24-degree nights, which is different. But
mhm,
I forgot the irrigation was on and it ran, and I thought the pipe would be frozen, but like
mhm,
I guess it wasn't enough time, and it ran, and everything in there was nice.
mhm,
I would say like definitely making sure the moisture level of the plant is up. Like I wouldn't want to go through all that with the turgor pressure in the cell. I make sure the plant's definitely got enough water.
mhm,
And I talked to Shelly at AEA about plant antifreeze, like the nutrients that you combine to make it.
mhm,
Um, I don't know it off my head. I know zinc is a really important one, which I didn't think. I was thinking like calcium, silica, boron, and she was saying zinc's a big one. But
mhm,
I'll ask her what it is and I'll text it to you. But um, that and crop selection is probably going to be a big one too. Like I
mhm.
feel like broccoli'd be fine with that. But if I ever saw 16 in my forecast, I would be too scared not to cover it.
So the fun part is it's really based on where I'm located. So where the forecast is going to say it, I just have to measure 10 degrees lower because I'm in a bowl. And that cold
Oh,
air is
really?
sinking off of that valley, off the mountaintop, and dropping all the way down to the bottom. And
That's
so
wild.
that's where I'm at on the river bottom. But up the hill, off the river bottom, like right above my house, it'll be 10 degrees warmer. And so it's a bizarre kind of phenomenon microclimate. Um,
I mean, you think about like the nature aspect of it, being next to the water is maybe the biggest benefit. Like
mhm.
I would just try and make sure your soil is not hurting for moisture at all.
Right. Now, I know in the Midwest, it's kind of the opposite, where winter growing, if you have too much moisture growing into it and you get that really cold snap and you have water within that leaf structure, that water freezes on lettuces and it causes issues. You're thinking kind of the opposite here, where,
I'm talking about drip tape.
okay,
Not like don't go and like soak everything right before it freezes, but just make sure consistently that there's always enough moisture there. And
right.
and I have a friend in Johnson City, Tennessee, and he was like, "What are you doing for this freeze?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm double irrigating today, so that my like none of my leaves are dry, so they have like more water to freeze and more sugars to freeze." And he was like, "You're crazy. I would never do that." And I'm like, "What?" That's like where I grew up in Ohio. That was the thing for like landscape plants and stuff. And we had to deal with salt, and, like icing and snow removal and all that. So, but and like salt pulling water out of the plant. That's what really caused the freeze injury. So he was saying all this stuff, and I was like, dude, you live like in a spring though. Like his ground just has water that kind of comes out of it, like
Uh-huh.
perfect mountain water. He's like, if I irrigate, my plants will literally come out of the ground. And I'm like, well, you don't need to. I
Mm,
do. I'm on kind of a ridge. It's like it would be really dry if I didn't irrigate it. So and yeah, I think it's called desiccation. When you have a dry leaf and the wind blows or you freezes and
uh-huh.
um yeah, there's another word for a dry plant that freezes that doesn't rebound like instantly when it thaws out. Lazy plants or something like that. I forget it. But
Lazy, lazy.
there's definitely a difference that so that's one of the big ones I would say is making sure there's enough moisture in there.
Gotcha.
And you're not growing it in the field, are you?
I've got both.
Okay. One thing that my buddy in Johnson City told me one year is there's these roof these roof heating cables that they sell up north. They're like thin, 100-foot, or you can get them bigger or smaller cables, and they self-regulate to like 150 something degrees or something like that.
Mm.
But just weave that in your bed or put it right in the middle of the bed and just let that little bit of extra heat
Uh-huh.
slowly build up around there overnight. I do it in celery beds. I do it in our nursery because our nursery isn't heated yet. That's my next project, is to get our nursery heater in.
Uh-huh.
And celery and beets. I've done it in beets too. Salad. We had a huge freeze come through here, like wind chills in the negatives. That's pretty big for us.
Uh-huh.
And I had salad in a tunnel that didn't have heat cables and salad in a tunnel that did have heat cables. They were both row covered. And the one with the heat cables had like no damage. And the one without it had spotty damage. So
Wow. Well, that is different advice than I've always heard. And I love hearing different advice to give me something to try and figure out. And hopefully through the constant experimenting and the learning, I'm going to come up with something that works. And so that's kind of the whole reason we're doing the podcast and the How I Grow This, is to learn something new, to try new methodologies, and to hopefully advance your garden wherever you're at. Casey, this has been a super fun conversation. Thank you so much for being willing to jump in the middle of a workday where you're harvesting and trying to get ready for market this weekend. Folks, I hope you leave a rating and review. Go over to where should they find you if they want to find out more about what you're up to or your farm?
You can type it in on Google. You can go to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, but you can just, the website will take you all there too if you want. So
perfect. That's Casey Ostwick with Honey Tree Farm in North Carolina. Casey, thank you so much for being willing to jump on the podcast, and encouragement to all of you. Never stop trying new things in the garden. Always be open to learning and growing, maybe a little bit differently than you have in the past. And
there's no finish line.
There is no.
You can't mess it up. You can only learn.
Awesome. Casey, thank you so much. We look forward to the next episode of the How I Grow This podcast. And thanks for staying tuned all the way to the end. We're so excited that you're here, and that probably means that you enjoyed what you heard. You found some value in it. If you could, go and share this with somebody that you know. That really helps push it forward in the algorithm. Hit a like, a subscribe, hit a review. It makes all the difference for us. Thank you for listening to the How I Grow This podcast, and we are dedicated to bringing more of these stories to you to help you grow at the next level. We'll see you.